Exactly. Hello there, CriterioNate here, number 450. Wes Anderson's Bottle Rocket. Oh, God. See, I can't even read this. That's how yellow it is. 1996, 91 minutes color, stereo, 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio. God, I mean, I know Anderson loves the color yellow, and Criterion loves to humor him, but good God. It's like I had the subtitles on for certain parts of the movies, and like they're all in yellow, and I couldn't read half the damn shit. It's like, good God. Anyway. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else, I hate to admit it, but this is actually a pretty good movie. I'm thoroughly impressed. I can't believe Wes Anderson made a good movie. I really can't. And that's probably why nobody likes it. Not as much as, Royal Tenenbaums, or because Bill Murray's not in it, But I think that's what helps it, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love Bill Murray and all that, but I think his overabundance of it's just kind of gotten a little stale, and just all the other people he puts in his movies. Jason Schwartzman's not in this movie. God, Kate Blanchett's not in this movie. God, this movie's actually kind of watchable. And it's funny too. It's really, really funny too. I didn't think Owen Wilson could be so good and not say whoa before he grew his hair out. But yeah, this is actually a good movie. Yeah. So, and I think some of it is a big part of it that I like is the fact that there's a limited cast. There's only I think Criterion only lists 6 or 7 main characters. There's a bunch of people in it, but there's only a few only a few starring roles in the movie. So basically, I'll just give you the plot here. It's about these 3 guys. There's this guy Anthony, who's in a psychiatric ward, a voluntary psychiatric ward, but he doesn't tell his friend Dignan that, who's played by Anthony's played by Luke Wilson, and Dignan's played by Owen Wilson, and so he tells Dignan to break him out because he's really Dignan is this very, very heist crazy kind of guy. He's really into crime dramas and doing all these robbery things, and he tries to get he tries to train Anthony to pull robberies with him, and they enlist his friend. They enlist their friend Bob, played by what's his name, Robert Musgrave, to help with them, basically because he has a car. They need him to have a car, and so they train. So Dignan takes Anthony to train him how to do a robbery, and so they rob Anthony's house, but Dignan screws it up because he takes a pair of Anthony's mother's earrings, and so so that's just though it's just a practice thing, and so they all get together and they plan this heist, this big heist. They get guns and from this this gun owner, and they plan this big heist, and all they're going to do is rob a bookstore, a little tiny bookstore, and they only walk away with a little over $500. And so and Dignan's really concerned about the people finding out their identities and all that. And so they end up, taking it on the lam and hiding out in a motel nearby. Or I don't remember how far out they travel, but they go to this motel. And while they're there, Anthony ends up falling in love with one of the housekeepers, Inez, who speaks little English, but that isn't stopping him. So somehow they end up having a relationship, and Bob ends up finding out that his brother got arrested for growing marijuana, and so Bob ends up ditching Dignan and Anthony, stealing the car, taking his car, and going off and trying to help him. And and so basically he ends up, and so they're stuck there, and they realize they need to get out, and so he ends up. So Anthony wants to tell Inez that he loves her, falls in love with her, and she isn't, she doesn't necessarily feel the same way at the time. However, she ends up developing feelings for him, and in one of the funnier scenes, there's one of the cooks translates for Anthony to, he speaks Spanish and English. He translates for Anthony, and at the end, he ends up saying goodbye to. Inez ends up saying goodbye to Dignan, and she ends up telling the translator to tell Anthony that that she loves him. However, Dignan doesn't know that the translator, is translating for Inez, and so he just gets this guy saying, hey, Dignan, tell, or actually they go by the name Jerry. They check in under assumed names, Jerry. And so he says, tell Anthony I love him. He's like, okay, whatever, man. I thought that was pretty funny. So they steal this car, and it ends up breaking down, and it isn't until the car breaks down in the middle of nowhere that they find out that Anthony ended up giving Inez basically the entire $500 of the money they stole, leaving them with only $16. Dignan is upset, and they fight, and Anthony ends up going they go their separate ways. Anthony ends up getting a job coaching little league or soccer coach or baseball, a soccer team, and he writes to his sister Grace, the younger sister Grace, who we see earlier in the movie, and there's a really funny commentary of Gracie. Oh, you're so cynical. Gosh, she's so young. I think she's like 8 or 9 or something. But anyway, and so Anthony and Dignan end up running into each other, and Dignan now has been working for this guy throughout the movie. He's been mentioning his quote unquote employer, Mr. Henry, who is this mysterious dude. And so Anthony ends up, and by this point, Dignan's now wearing these iconic yellow jumpsuits, which if I had one, I would totally be wearing those because they are kind of cool. Bob ends up they ended up roping Bob back into the mix, and he tells them that he's got this big heist for them to do, and they meet Mr. Henry, who's played by James Caan, and they end up getting, there's this African-American guy, Applejack, who has the car now, who's there now, their drive-away car or whatever, driver, and they get this Indian guy, Kumal, I think his name is, and he's the safecracker, and so there's a lot of so they just get this little ragtag team of guys to pull this heist, and I forget where they're like robbing some like fish marketry or something. I don't remember, but anyway, so they pull off they do this big thing, and they end up Bob ends up getting cold feet. He ends up breaking his walkie-talkie, and it's one of those best laid plans of mice and men thing where everything goes wrong, and Bob ends up breaking his walkie-talkie, and a gun ends up firing off, setting off an alarm. Applejack has a heart attack, and they end up trying to get out. Dignan ends up going back in to save Applejack, and the police end up chasing Dignan, arresting him, and basically throwing him in the penitentiary. And I guess Mr. Henry ends up robbing Bob of his furniture. And at the end of the film, Anthony and Bob visit Dignan in the pen, and they end up telling her that Inez will send her a care package, because Inez at one point Dignan ends up telling Anthony that the translator loves him, but Anthony realizes what's going on, and he ends up trying to get in touch with Inez, and calling, every single person at the motel. And, he ends up getting in touch with Inez, and she says, "Oh yeah, I love you." And then, and so they reconcile their friendship, their relationship. And so it looks like it's going to be, they have a happy ending. I kind of do wish that they would have had one more scene with her, but I guess, it was more about the relationship, mostly between the relationship between Dignan and Anthony, as well as Bob. And I mean, it's fair because Owen Wilson and Wes Anderson wrote the film together, so it would be more about Dignan's character. I think he definitely is the standout character. So yeah, that's basically it. Dignan does his time, I guess, and and Anthony and Bob are just on the outside. So yeah. Again, I thought this was a really good movie. I thought it was very, very funny. I thought it wasn't a straight up Wes Anderson film. There were definitely a lot of touches of Anderson throughout the film. To say nothing of the Wilson brothers in it, and just the editing, the colors. But at the same time, I think the humor just was a little more, just made more sense. It wasn't over the top. Wasn't quirky and all that. It made more sense. It was a little more down to earth. It wasn't the elevated kind of humor that we have to expect with, about, just really quirky characters, with Royal Tenenbaums and The Life Aquatic and all that. These are quirky characters, but they're in a situation that just seems like you can kind of tell just from face value it's dumb. It's not going to go right. They're going to rob a bookstore. It's like, oh god, you can tell this is a failing. It's like there's a spanner in the works. And so yeah, it works really well. And again, Anderson, I'm impressed, and I might even pick this one up too. Also, I think because it's really short too. I don't remember. I think Rushmore was pretty short too, but again, Jason Schwartzman, it was dumb. So yeah, I like this one, and I think also there wasn't an abundance of old '60s tunes. There's a tune by the Rolling Stones, and then two by Love, but it's mostly original Marx Mothersbaugh original music. And yeah, so that's all I got. And Bottle Rocket, what do I give this? I'm going to give it an A. I like this movie. It may even be one of the top 28. I may pick this one up just so I can say, hey, I own a Wes Anderson film, the only good one he made, So yeah, there you are. So Bottle Rocket's A for me, and if you have to watch it, yeah. So if I even put on my Facebook page, when you absolutely have to watch a Wes Anderson film, Bottle Rocket. So supplements. There's two. Let's see. There's two. It's a 2-disc set. The first disc just has the movie. Second disc has all the supplements. There's a 25-minute making of documentary featuring all the cast, most of the cast, just talking about. Anderson talking about how he made the movie and just their memories of working on the film. And interesting to see Owen Wilson and Wes Anderson sitting together. There's also the original film the original short film that Wes Anderson and Owen Wilson made. They made a black and white 16mm film, but they ran out of money, I think, after like 8 minutes or something like that. And so basically the film it focuses on them plotting to rob the bookstore, and they talking to the getting the guns, and then I think they end up pulling off the heist, and then they end up going their separate ways, and so it's basically focusing on that little bit. The characters, I think Anthony is definitely a lot different. Anthony is much more willing to go out and do robberies. At one point he ends up breaking into a car and stealing a wallet, and I definitely did not pick up that vibe from Anthony in the final film. And yeah, so it's an interesting little short. There's also a couple of deleted scenes. There's one scene, and there's also a scene where I guess they were going to do the whole. Originally, Anderson had planned to do the whole film in like panoramic, anamorphic widescreen, and that didn't work out. But they did one of the scenes that ended up getting deleted where Anthony and Bob are talking about Dignan, and Bob's like, freaking out and just kind of venting about Dignan. And at one point, Anthony goes to get a soda, and Bob doesn't realize this, and Dignan comes in, and he starts bad-mouthing Dignan, and then he realizes who he's talking to. And in the test scene, he ends up, they end up fighting about it, and Bob's like, "You are not the leader." In the deleted scene, he ends up saying, Bob ends up calling him a name like Corporal Dignan or something, or Captain Dignan, and Dignan actually likes it and laughs it off, And so, interesting how characters develop, between scenes and all that. What else? There's storyboards. There's a lecture from what's this guy, Tony Shafrazi, who I guess really liked the film. But Shafrazi Lectures #1. I didn't know there was more than one. I didn't even know who he was until I looked him up. And there's also a short film by Barry Braverman, who's a filmmaker friend of Wes Anderson, called Murita Cycles, which focuses on Braverman's father, I think, who was a bicycle shop owner or something like that. And I guess his film was a big inspiration to Anderson, and so it's included here. And yeah, there's location photos and all that good stuff. So yeah. So that's it for Bottle Rocket A. Good stuff. So it's been a while since I've seen you, and there's a reason for it. I think part of the problem, and I told you at the before we did the Eclipser did the last series, was that there was a reason why I put off Bottle Rocket. First of all, I didn't think it was going to be good because it's Anderson, but also part of the thing was that I've just been kind of losing the drive to do. Wait a minute, hang on, I'm going to tear this off. Ow. Okay. Oh. Ew. God. I think part of the thing that part of the reason why I waited so long to do Bottle Rocket was because, first of all, I got it from my library, so I didn't have to, it's my library, so I could, renew it as many, up to 6 times. So I had some time. I didn't have to necessarily check it out and turn it in as soon as I'm done to, and all that, where I usually get DVDs from outside of the Sacramento, I'd have to get, I only get one loaning period. So I had some time. But also, I've just been working on a bunch of other different projects, and I just haven't had the time or drive to do Criterion. It's easier with the Eclipser because, the Eclipser only has to do, just the movie. With me, I have to do all these supplements and watch all the supplements and stuff like that. So it's a different vibe, I'm never sure. And again, I think for this particular one, it was because it was Wes Anderson. I knew I would be nauseated by certain parts of this movie, but at the same time, I wasn't as nauseated with this movie as I was with the other 3 films we've seen. I can't guarantee that with the Darjeeling Limited or Moonrise Kingdom. Those will probably be, So anyway, I like, again, the main point is I like this movie, but again, I think also another big part of it is the fact that sometimes it takes. I've noticed it's been taking some movies a while to get to my library, and so I'd much rather kind of wait until I get all the movies so I can have a big chunk and then take a break. I don't like being able to do one movie and then take a break and then all that stuff. It doesn't work as well for me. So anyway, so that's why I was kind of waiting for the other movies to move and all that. And in fact, while we're talking, I'm going to go ahead and put a hold on the next Rossellini set. Rossellini's History Films, Renaissance and Enlightenment, which is the next set that the Eclipser will do. Hopefully I can find it, but anyway, I'll work on that. So anyway, we will. So yeah, that's why I basically there was a long break. A longer break. It took me a while. When I said I'd be doing it one time, I didn't do it there, and blah blah blah. But anyway, but I'm here, and we're back at it. I put a hold on the next few series, And yeah, so anyway, that's it for me today. Tomorrow, Fan La Tulipe is there. Spy Who Came In From the Cold is at the library, so I'm picking those up today. And we'll do Fan La Tulipe probably tomorrow. Spy Who Came In From the Cold, we probably won't do that on Friday. We'll probably do that. We'll probably do that one on Saturday. We'll do that one Saturday. And then Sunday, Sunday we will do Europa. And as you know, Chunking Express I've already got. I'll upload Chunking Express, probably on Saturday night as well. And then we'll do Europa on Sunday, White Dog on Monday, because hopefully, provided they come in. There's a chance I forget, because our library is closed on Saturday. So if I don't get them on Friday, then we may be stuck after Chunking Express. So we'll see. Anyway. But at least I'm going to put a hold on them, and I honestly should have done all this. I should have been thinking about the fact that, my library is closed. So, but we'll get to these as soon as possible, and all that good stuff. So anyway, yeah, so we've got a couple more, at least for the next few days. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Don't put tape on your nose. If you're going to put tape on your nose when you're robbing a bookstore, explain to yourself. And don't rob bookstores, and yeah, and don't get guns to rob bookstores, and don't rob. Gosh, I can't think of any of them. And yeah, so that's all I'll say. So that's from me. Thank you for watching, and we will see you all tomorrow for Fan La Tulipe. Probably tomorrow. I maybe end up taking, again, who knows. With my schedule, I may end up having to wait until Friday anyway. I may end up waiting until Saturday to do Fan La Tulipe. We'll see. So either tomorrow or Saturday for Fan La Tulipe. And until then, goodbye.